Hello, friends. I just finished an interview with Petrus Productivus, who is a productivity expert. And you're going to really get something out of this interview if you are a person who struggles with procrastination. Procrastination is a whole thing on its own. And what Petrus does is he breaks it down and talks about why do people procrastinate? What's the most likely scenario for a person to procrastinate? Where does it come from? Is it ADHD? Is it anxiety? What is it? And what are the tricks of the trade that you can use to overcome procrastination in your life? This is going to be worth a listen through the entire thing. Yeah, I know my interviews are really long, but this is one that has really tangible stuff about what procrastination is, why it's bad, why it's sometimes good, and what you can do to overcome it in your life. Enjoy. Welcome to the Mindful Mutiny Podcast. I'm Jeremy Van Wert, CEO and transformational coach. Mindful Mutiny is a podcast about people who thoughtfully rebel against the status quo and bravely pursue their highest potential. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the Mindful Mutiny Podcast. It helps with everything, with our rating, with our listenership, with everything like that. Today, we have a really wonderful guest that I am really excited about talking to because I have so many questions. We have Petrus Productivus, the founder of Heroic Productivity. Petrus, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Jeremy, it's a pleasure to be on your show, and I'm really excited as well.
Today on the Mindful Mutiny Podcast, we have the pleasure of hosting Petrus Productivus, a luminary in the realm of productivity. Transforming from a chronic procrastinator to a venerated productivity coach, Petrus has spent over a decade honing his craft, guiding more than 100 individuals to unlock their full potential and to emerge as productive heroes. With a unique knack for assisting perfectionist solopreneurs, he empowers his clients to achieve their highest goals with ease and advocating the philosophy of work smart, play hard, and be heroic, which is not only something that maximizes efficiency, but it also enriches their lives to have more fun, financial freedom, and everything else in life. Today, he's here to share insights in overcoming distractions, enhancing focus, and incorporating accountability into your life, all while navigating the digital world without succumbing to the snares of addictive social networks. So Petrus, I'm so happy that you're here because procrastination is absolutely huge. And there's never been a time when there have been more distractions for people that keep people from being productive.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And by the way, what a great intro. This is the best I've ever had so far. So that's fantastic. Thanks a lot for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, procrastination is really something painful. It for me was devastating, and that was kind of like this whole starting point of my productivity journey. I used to joke about the fact that I have a PhD in procrastination because oh man, like that was a dread. It really prevented me from achieving success in academics. Like I repeated my first year of university 3 times because of that. And this form of self-sabotage is really something that's often misunderstood. So I'll be excited to share more about that with you in this episode.
So I have several clients right now who are just dealing with crippling procrastination. And these people are really high level people. I'm talking about career professionals here, doctors, attorneys, leaders, these kind of people. They are absolutely brilliant. IQs off the chart, and they just can't figure out why. They have continually through their life, because they've done it through their undergrad, done it through their grad school, and now they're in these positions that are very important, and they keep waiting to finish reports and review things until sometimes within hours before. Sometimes they will stay up all night and then start their project at 2 a.m. when it's due at 8 in the morning. And it's just so devastating and so hard for them. And so what is it at the core of all of this?
Great question. So, well, good news for them. This is how I always like to introduce it is they're not crazy. This is just a normal coping behavior and mechanism from the human mind. So like, this is the first thing they have to know. Like, they're not the only ones in that. They're not crazy. This happens to more people than we believe. I found a correlation in my own experience between high IQ people and procrastination, because often those people will tend to overthink a lot. They really want to make the best options, and so the best decision, and so they will think a lot. And sometimes the opposite is also true. The people who maybe do not have the biggest high IQ, they don't overthink and they just take action. And then what's interesting is that some of them end up being very successful just because of their action and their execution. So that's something interesting. But to answer your question, like, what's going on there? What's the cause of this? The first thing is to understand is procrastination is not the cause of the problem. The procrastination is just a consequence. It's not the core of the issue, is just a symptom. Procrastination is a coping mechanism. It's a defense mechanism from our body for actually reducing stress temporarily. So when you see it from this angle, what's going on? I had to prepare for an exam that was at 9 o'clock in the morning. Same thing, I would only start studying at 2 in the morning, the night before, because I would constantly procrastinate on that. So means whenever I was thinking about preparing for that test, I would actually feel very stressed, very anxious. And the reason I would feel so anxious is because I would put a ton of pressure on myself, because the stakes would be so high, because that thing is the most important thing in the world for me, succeeding that test. Same thing for them. Let's say the doctor who has to prepare this important report by a specific deadline. Very, very likely, I'm 100% sure about that, this report is very important to him. And so, because it's very important to him, because the stakes are high, he probably has some kind of fear of failure, fear of not being up to the task. And whenever he thinks about working on that, he's telling him, you know what, today at 7 p.m. after work, I'm going to work hard on this, and I'm going to do this for 2 hours. Then he comes back from work, 7 p.m. comes along, he thinks about it, and he's got this anxiety coming up. He feels stressed. And so the brain will kick in, turn on this defense mechanism that is procrastination, and will tell him, whoa, we're feeling a bit too stressed right now. How about we focus our attention on anything else besides that one thing that you said you wanted to do? So how about we watch TV? How about we play games? How about we do our accounting? Or how about we pick up every single leaf in the garden to make it cleaner? Like, it doesn't matter, it may give you a sense of being productive. It's still procrastination, anything else that is not the thing you wanted to do, and it's just an excuse instead, is procrastination. So the funny thing is that it actually kind of works. It will reduce the stress temporarily, because by diverting your attention, not thinking about that, temporarily you will feel better. You won't feel as stressed. The problem is, after doing this procrastination, after, let's say, watching a movie or playing a game for a couple of hours, you finish that, and suddenly you feel even worse, because now there is guilt involved in the process, which actually makes the anxiety even more. And so guess what? The cycle is going to repeat. You've got this guilt that leads to anxiety, this anxiety that will lead to procrastination, this procrastination that will lead to guilt, this guilt that will lead to anxiety, etc., etc., etc. And then you can go for weeks, months, years, decades with procrastination on this specific behavior.
So my head's spinning, because you mentioned a lot of specific things in there.
Yeah.
And one thing that I was kind of thinking of is the impact of prolonged procrastination on self-value. I work with people who they're just, like I said, they're brilliant people. And this prolonged procrastination, we're talking about getting their way through school, doing this, exactly what you're talking about. And they have a really low sense of self that seems like it just gets lower every single time they barely sneak through having crammed and barely put something together that's acceptable, and then walked into work with something that is subpar, and they feel bad about themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's really where I was myself. The thing is, once you keep repeating that behavior and you procrastinate, like every goddamn time, you will be telling yourself, okay, this is the last time. I've had enough of this. I keep doing this. You're cramming until the last minute. You feel so stressful. It doesn't feel good at all. And you tell yourself, this is the last time. Next time, I'm not going to do it anymore. And then you keep doing it. And you feel stupid. Your performance starts degrading because it may work for a while. You may still somehow, because of your high IQ or whatever reason, or some smart strategy, you may still able to pull it off, and still ace that exam, like just bare minimum. And until it doesn't work anymore, until like you end up, like for me in university, it didn't work anymore because the workload was so high that I couldn't just cram everything at the last minute like that. The like university standards in Belgium, where I'm coming from, are pretty damn high compared to high school. So it kind of worked in high school to do everything at the last minute, but not in university. And then you're right, it absolutely does impact your self-esteem, your sense of self-worth, your self-talk as well. And I remember really feeling so frustrated, so dumb, because I would look around in the amphitheater in university, and then I'll see these people, that are half as smart as I, in a very proud way, I would think. But yet, damn, they're able to pass the exams. Why? Because they're able to study consistently. Why on earth can I not do that? Why is it so hard for me to just sit down and open this textbook? So it's it really does feel bad, because it's when you reach this kind of extreme stage of procrastination, because it's not really well understood in our society. A lot of people made the stigma that procrastination equals laziness. That's really far from the truth. This is really two extremely different things. Actually, in reality, procrastinators are often some of the most ambitious people that I know of, and they want to really achieve great things. They are not lazy. It's a totally different issue. But then people won't necessarily understand that, and so maybe they may label you with this kind of stereotype. And yourself, you are the most frustrated because you have this potential, you can do it, and yet you keep disappointing yourself. And then sometimes on the long term, you may start disappointing others, your friends, your partner, your colleagues, because you will be also depriving yourself of fun. You will be depriving yourself of sleep. You will constantly say no to any social activities because no, I haven't been productive enough. I really have to catch up on that thing. And that is not a fun way to live. I can really tell you. So you're right. In terms of self-esteem and self-worth, it can be really tough.
I've noticed that there is one of the many commonalities that I often see in this kind of person as they come from highly productive families. And maybe productive isn't the word, but a sister who is a doctor, a brother who is a high-level businessman, and this sort of thing. And so there is a high expectation of achievement within the family. And then this person feels like they are the fraud of the family. They're the fake of the family. Even though they know that they're smart, there's this part of them that just doesn't feel like they are like the others.
That's very possible. That's very likely. Now, it's not always the case. Like myself, I do not really come from a family of super high achievers. My parents have been wonderful in not putting too much pressure on me, and allowing me to do whatever I wanted with my career, my life, and everything. So the pressure was just really coming from me in my case. But for other people, yes, absolutely. The pressure may come from the environment, from society, from family expectations. The way, of course, your childhood, you know this better than I, our past, our traumas and everything has a big influence on that. Let's say there are these wonderful productive heroes. That's how I call my coaches. Two of my productive heroes. they're actually brothers, and they are so damn smart people, so amazing people. One is a social entrepreneur, working on several projects really impacting the world, in France and in the outer islands of France, in New Caledonia. And the other one is a very successful lawyer, helping people who get, fired, companies that are firing in mass people and everything, and he's defending those workers, right? So really an amazing family with worthy mission and everything. Yet I see so many patterns in them because, well, they had the same parents, and their parents were people that would be constantly working at home. And they grew up with this idea that it's normal to be working until 8 p.m., 9 p.m. After, and bring your work back home. And why? Because actually their parents, they were also like in the social justice realm, And so having this feeling that, you know what, we're lucky. There are people that suffer more than us. It's okay to sacrifice ourselves and our well-being, and it's okay to pull on these long work hours. That's actually something that has been ingrained in their mentality. And so now part of my work with the two brothers is helping them unlearn that, because it's not sustainable on the long term. They also have to work smart, play hard, and be heroic. So our past can also have, and our environment can also have a huge influence in that factor, in the pressure we put on ourselves.
One of the things that we're learning a whole lot more about is adult ADD and that sort of thing. Do you notice that a lot of people who procrastinate have some form of ADD, or is it just mainly anxiety that you see?
It's mainly anxiety. Now, ADD will definitely make it harder for people to stay focused, be consistent. And so there can be similarities in kind of like the consequence on like how consistent they will be in their productivity. But when it comes to the cause, usually that's not really ADD. It's usually like this anxiety that comes from ourselves. But the real question is, where does this anxiety come from? Like, what is the cause of that anxiety? And that the answer to that question actually really depends on many different people, for different people. So the cause of my anxiety that was leading to procrastination for me was actually fear of failure. That was the one thing. That was the one thing that was really holding me back and putting a ton of pressure on me and leading me to procrastinate. For some others, it could simply be a lack of clarity. They are really unsure about whatever are the next steps to take to tackle this big project, ambitious project for them. And so, because this lack of clarity will lead to confusion, it's not really fun, and it may lead to anxiety as well, leading therefore to procrastination. So those are really usually the main common pitfalls. You can also have a perfectionism that's quite intertwined as well with this, leading to procrastination. That is a big one as well. So generally, those are the ones. But this will depend from one person to the other. So part of my job, if I'm dealing with people who procrastinate, is actually trying to understand, like, where does this anxiety come from? Why is there so much pressure whenever they think about this massive, high stakes, very important project or goal that they actually want to achieve?
My approach to so many of these kinds of big things has always been that I compensate for my own ADHD and lack of attention by structuring a project, and so that I just do little bits as I go along, and then I'm usually finished weeks ahead of time and I have it ready to go, mainly because I don't trust myself to wait
clever.
any period of time. And I feel like if I did that, there was no way that I could possibly be successful. But with with these very large subjects, what you're saying is that it will be so anxiety provoking. It will be so monumental in the mind of the procrastinator that it's just more than they can want to deal with today. It's so much better if they just leave it until the last minute, and then it's so bad.
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, the approach you use is very clever, and it's interesting to see that what you perceived as your weakness being ADHD, you compensate and you turn it into a strength. Actually, that's wonderful. This approach that you use, by the way, is called chunking, and it's very useful for really like it's consists in breaking things down and making sure that you achieve things step by step. That's very powerful. It's very useful for breaking the overwhelm, any kind of overwhelm. So there is this fascinating realm within the field of psychology called self-worth theory, where essentially it says that in the mind of the procrastinator thinks that his performance is equal to his self-worth. So that means that if he doesn't perform well, if he doesn't have that A+ test, A+ grade in a test, or this amount of money at the end of the month, if his performance is bad, he will feel like a worthless individual. Someone that is, like really not of any value. That's the equation. He believes performance equals self-worth. So, which is not true. It is, of course, not true. Our performance is not equal to our self-worth, And so the best way I like to say is like, if, Jeremy, today, let's say this month, let's say you have a bad month in your business, you didn't achieve your financial goals, I'm still gonna like you. Nothing has changed in terms of your value as an individual. I like you for your sense of humor, for your personality, for your values. Like that is what actually matters, not your performance. Same for your loved ones, they will still love you for that. So because of that false assumption that and wrong equation in the mind of the procrastinator that performance equals self-worth, we will use procrastination and self-sabotage as a way to actually protect our self-worth. So how does that work? More an example. The best example, again, is when it comes to, let's say, school. There is this exam at 9 a.m. happening in the school. And so you'll have students in the ranks before coming into the classroom who are just chatting between them. And you'll hear one saying like, oh man, I only started to study at 8 p.m. last night. And then the other one saying, oh, me, I only started to study at 2 a.m. Actually last night. And then they go on, they do the exam. And then, the one who, for example, said, he only started to study at 2 a.m. Let's say he's got an 80% grade at this exam. Well, then that's great news, because then he can tell himself, you know what? Despite the fact I had so little time, I'm still pretty damn good. I'm a worthy individual. My performance is pretty good. I'm pretty damn smart. So procrastination here, check, works well. It's rewarded. Now, second scenario, same guy. Let's say he fails the test. He only gets 20% on this test. Well, you know what? It's still going to be okay, because he'll say, well, hey, I only had this little amount of time for preparing. I only started studying at 2 a.m. So of course I couldn't succeed, but that's okay. Like it's because I didn't have enough time. So here, his self-worth as an individual is safe and protected. Why? Because he used procrastination as an excuse. It's like, oh, I actually was lacking the time. So therefore, in both scenarios, procrastination is actually protecting his self-worth. So the behavior is is rewarding, it's actually working, and then therefore it will be repeated. And so that's why you will keep telling yourself, in my case, this is the last time I'm doing this. This is the last time I'm doing it. But you keep doing it because actually it works. It's a brilliant trick to protect your self-worth. So it works. But like we said at the beginning, it's not sustainable. That it only works for a certain amount of time. And the self-talk, the self-worth, the pain, the sacrifice, it's actually not worth it. But this is actually what's going on.
That's brilliant. And as you're talking here about productivity is equal to self-worth, in the minds of people who do this, what I automatically go to in my practice is, where is the actual measure of meaning in the person's life? What is life actually about? And that's where it gets into a bit of an existential conversation here, where I would imagine that certain amount of mindfulness, meditation, calming techniques, and bringing in a sense of worth that is not defined by the things that you do might be something that's helpful.
100%. 100%. You are spot on. A good example is another productive heroes of mine. So he's a healthcare professional. He works as an EMT in London, and his career and his work of field is of high pressure, and he procrastinates a lot on that because he still ties his performance to his self-worth in that regard. Then on the side, he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter. And then he recently joined some competition and win some ranks and some prizes. No procrastination there. So we were debriefing on that, saying like, that's interesting. Why do you think this is happening? The conclusion of our coaching session was he doesn't tie his identity to being a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter. For him, that's just fun. It's just something he's enjoying doing. He loves the process of training and learning. That's not how he sees his own identity. Whereas for his career as a healthcare professional, that's who he is. He believes really that's core to his identity. And so same thing here. It's like it's kind of tied to his self-worth. He really thinks that his performance in that field is tied to his self-worth, and so therefore he's afraid of failure. If he's failing here, that's bad for his own identity. So actually, this is very helpful because here, once he's able to open his eyes and realize, oh, actually, I can get more meaning and more satisfaction, and actually have a nice performance in other areas, and it's working well, like this hobby or this sport. You can replicate some of these successes to that main area, your career, that can be stressful. So actually, yes, it does help to really to find a sense of meaning in other areas of life, and not think that all of your performance, all of your self-worth is just reduced to, I'm a therapist, I'm a productivity coach, or I'm this. Because we have so many masks, we have so many things, and plenty of different ways to find meanings in our life.
So this is just, I guess, something that kind of occurred to me here. Do you find that there's a certain segment of people who procrastinate that have a propensity towards addiction? And what I'm saying is, I would imagine that sometimes I know that there is an issue with the use of stimulants in high-level people to get work done, to pull all-nighters and so forth. Is there, have you seen it where people are using stimulants to be able to foster on their success as a procrastinator, because at least they've got a good solid 8 hours the night before to take care of it?
That's a good question. I don't have like I've seen it, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not like generalized, and I don't really have enough of a big of a sample to really make assessment on that. But I've seen it like in several instances. Actually, it was always with people like some of my productive heroes that would be from North America, because also they're like yeah, let's say those let's say ADHD stimulants and drugs are quite easy to get, and so there it maybe I think maybe that's also a cultural thing where there's a lot of pressure and everything. It's maybe more normalized rather than let's say in Europe or in Asia, and actually, but you could think also of like the biggest legal stimulant in the world, which is coffee. Is the same thing. The usage of coffee, you will. It is a very common thing for people to compensate when they feel that they are not performing well enough to just increase their caffeine intake because again, they actually don't feel like ready enough or good enough or awake enough. And so they would pulling those all-nighters, getting the coffee, drinking the Red Bull, or take maybe stronger stimulants if they get their hands on it.
Yeah, I've really seen what you were talking about, the constant coffee drinking all day
Yeah.
long and then alcohol in the evening to get yourself tired enough to go to sleep. And then that's an addictive, sorry, that's an anxiety loop there
Oh, yeah,
for people where they're medicating themselves to live.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, definitely not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. So your own life, Petrus, you started procrastinating when? Where did you learn this? And how did you come to a point where you knew you had to let it go?
So I think, yeah, this was really it happened for me when I was 18 years old, when I was accepted to my dream university. It was a fantastic business school in the Netherlands, one of the best school of Europe, and I was so happy there. The educational system was great. It was very different. I was in a new environment. I could speak in English and meet people from all around the world. I was so thrilled to be there. And I really wanted to succeed and have study as like perfectly. Perfectionism started to kick in, and I really wanted my performance to be flawless there because I realized it was like a hell of a good chance for me to be there. And that's when chronic procrastinations really started to kick in, because I would not be able to study. I would not be able to get into the habit of doing it consistently. I would do everything at the last minute. And that's when I was really, really surprised with myself. I was like, what the hell is going on? This is really, really, really strange. And so I went on a deep rabbit hole of research on the internet. And could you guess what was my favorite way to procrastinate?
I don't, was it video games?
No, but that could be a good one. It was something actually very paradoxical. My favorite way of procrastinating was to research ways to overcome procrastination. So I would go on. I was like, okay, I really have to stop procrastinating, and I really have to study. But how about first I watch 3 hours of YouTube videos about what are the best resources and books on psychology about procrastination and motivation and productivity. And so I would just do this on and on and on, which I guess in the end kind of does pay off, because now I'm happy I've got all of these concepts. But back then, yeah, that was still a form of procrastination. Yeah. So that's how it really all started. And and yeah, I really obsessed about it. I read all of the books. I watched all of the videos. I've tried everything. I even experimented with different diets, with life hacks,
Yeah.
biohacking. I even bought once a wristband that I would put on my wrist, and every time I would do a negative behavior, I press a button and then it would actually give me an electric shock.
Yes, I'm familiar with this.
You're familiar with this one, right?
Yes.
So
Sometimes it's just a rubber band that you.
Same approach, absolutely. So like negative reinforcement therapy didn't work. I lost it somewhere in the library while trying to study. It was a big waste of money. And I tried all of these things, and I was actually I was constantly looking at procrastination from the wrong angle. And the starting point of my transformation was when I understood what I just shared earlier, which is procrastination is not the problem. It's not the cause. It's just a consequence. It's just a symptom. So I was constantly obsessed of how do I solve procrastination? How do I solve, I thought everything, all of the source of my problem is procrastination. But no, it's just a consequence. Let's figure out what was really causing me to procrastinate at the first place. And so that when I looked at it from this angle, then that's when transformation started to happen. And I could really use adapted techniques for actually overcoming that. Now, sadly, back then, there was no such thing as a productivity coach to help me do it much faster. So it took me a while, it took me several years to actually do it on myself. Some of the things that eventually did help me personally was using accountability, especially for people like me who, have perhaps fear of failure because they maybe care a lot about what people think. When you create accountability, it works so well because you don't want to let your friend down or your coach down or whoever is holding you accountable. You want to save your face, like we say in Asia. So it's I would do that. And a funny anecdote is one of my best friend that was also struggling. So we made this pact together and we said, okay, all right, we are going to study 5 times a week at the public library. That's where we're going to meet. And for every 15 minutes that one is late, he will have to buy 1 beer to the other at the end of the week. And so we will just count, okay, oh, wow, okay, it's 15 minutes late. Okay, that's 1 beer. Oh, 30 minutes. Oh, that's 2 beers. And so, yeah, we didn't want, to keep buying beers to each other. So we showed up on time and it worked. Thanks to that consistency, this accountability, that was one of the first thing that actually started to help really when it comes to overcoming procrastination.
Brilliant. And I just think about all of the technology right now that there is that can contribute to distraction and everything like that. Do you find that technology contributes to distraction, or is it just really the misuse of technology? And do you use technology to help people with their procrastination?
Yeah, good question. I definitely believe that there is a war going on for our mind, for our attention. We are fighting against giant corporations that monetize attention like never before. All of those, like YouTube, Google, TikTok, those social media platforms, they actually hire behavioral scientists, human behavior scientists, psychologists to really make sure that their users create habits and that they keep coming back to the apps. They use systems like the intermittent reward system, that things that actually make let's say casino addicts or gamblers so addicted to playing gambling or slot machines in casino. They use all of those techniques on Facebook, on TikTok, on all those popular social media to absolutely keep us hooked and addicted to their platform. So that certainly doesn't help if you want to be focused and actually make a good use of your time and get your projects done. Now, however, I'm not saying that we have to completely dismiss all social media, because there's a lot of value in that. It's important to also have time for fun and entertainment. It's a great way to connect also with people, and that's why I myself keep using it. And so I believe that it's like technology only kind of amplifies our habits. So if you are in the habit of procrastinating and you really have a hard time to get things done. Well, because of technology, it may be even harder, since you will now have this extra layer of addiction with that social media or with that video game or whatever, that will make it even easier for you to procrastinate. So that's kind of what I've experienced myself. But yes, there are still ways, however, to use technology to actually minimize that distraction, to increase that focus. And for me, I'm a big fan of that. And so, as a matter of fact, I've got a little gift for your listeners. I'll be sharing that with you, the link, so that you can put in the show note. But I have built this little guide that I call the Distraction Shield. And people will be able to find it on hericproductivity.com/shield. And it's basically a compilation of all of the best free and paid apps and tools to actually shield yourself and minimize distraction and maximize your focus. So I'm using that all the time. For example, I've got these apps on my phone that will block me from using, let's say, YouTube from this time to this time. And that works like wonder.
Oh, that's so good. I knew that there were some apps for that sort of thing. And I know that I use technology to keep myself on track. I need a checklist. I use Microsoft To Do. It's something that really works for me. And I also use those little timers that keep you specifically focused on flow for a period of time, and so that you're not just getting distracted by text messages and stuff like that. You know, some of these pieces of technology they're simple, but they're really important to remind you and keep you accountable for your attention span.
Absolutely. So that is definitely something that works well. Now, even better, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but now there are also ways to create accountability through the use of technology, such as this website. They're kind of the creator of that. It's called focusmate.com. And I don't know if you've heard of this one.
I've heard of this. Yes.
It's fantastic. I highly recommend it. A lot of people actually also have ADHD, love to use it because it's very, very efficient. The concept is called body doubling. That's the same reason why it works well to study or work in a library. Because you see everyone around you actually working and not playing around or watching random YouTube videos. You have this social pressure and you're like, oh, okay, well, I better also get my work done. So FocusMate is replicating body doubling online. So you will decide, you know what, I'm going to block this 1 hour work time from this time to that time. Then you're going to show up at that time, and you'll be paired with someone else from anywhere in the world through camera, and you'll say, hey, what are you going to work on for the next hour? Hey, oh, I want to achieve this and this and this. How about you? Oh, for me, I want to achieve this. Fantastic. Hey, good luck. Then sometimes people mute themselves, and then boom, you just go in your flow state. You focus, and then after the end of the hour, you just debrief quickly and ask how it worked. It's very simple, but it works wonder. Like, this is something that I still use myself if sometimes I need a bit of accountability, and they have like some free version as well. So this is the kind of tools that I really preach and I share to everyone. And that's what I put in my distraction shield, because I do believe, technology is just a tool. It's not bad or good. It just depends how you use it. And it really just amplifies your habits. So for me, I'm someone who has good habits. I really protect my focus, my time. I value all of that. So I'm using technology as a leverage to actually increase my productivity. And that works pretty well.
What I often find in people who are dealing with procrastination is that they will explain to me specific times when their procrastination was beneficial to them, where if they had gotten something done early, this last minute change that was proposed by their company wouldn't have been able, they would have had to gone in and do it anyway, using that as their script for why it's important to procrastinate. Do you find that there is a little bit of talking yourself into why this is good for you when it's clearly not?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm not buying this. I'm not buying this, Jeremy. Definitely not. No. Yeah, I mean, sure. Like, the way I would tell them is like, okay, right. Well, then just keep doing it and just come back to me whenever you realize it doesn't work.
Yes.
But good luck with that. Yeah, that's not going to be sustainable.
And so what are some of the practical techniques and exercises that because you talked about some of the technology that you recommend. What are some of the practical exercises and things to overcome procrastination, things that people can use? And you had talked about, I think you called it blocking or something like that, when I would start for instance, my own performance evaluation that I would do on me is a very long thing that I would do when I worked for a big corporation. And it would take everybody 8 hours to complete this thing. I'd started in January and I'd just do an hour a month. And then by November, it was done. What are some of the other ways that you recommend that people actually overcome this in a practical way?
Got it. Good question. I would say the strategies and tips actually will really vary for everyone. That's something I always like to highlight, and few people actually say it, but I'm a firm believer that productivity is a very personal thing. So actually what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another one. So that's why for me, everything I do is one-on-one. Everything I do is customized. I have my framework. And it works very well when it comes to productivity, but I will make sure to customize a lot of elements so that it works well with my coachees' lifestyle, goals, personality, etc. However, if I have to give some general tips and advice that generally works well for most people, one of the first one definitely, as we were mentioning, is breaking things down, because that will actually minimize the overwhelm, and overwhelm can be a huge source of anxiety. So instead of thinking, a good way I like to phrase it is, it comes from Neil Fury, an American psychologist. A good way is, instead of thinking, you know what, I have to finish this giant mountain of work by X deadline, which is how we often think. Instead of thinking this way, ask yourself, when can I start working on this for just 20 minutes? So instead of thinking in terms of finishing, I have to finish this giant thing by X, thinking, when can I start for just 20 minutes? So phrasing it this way, focusing on starting instead of finishing, is actually a massive relief for yourself. And the way you talk to yourself is definitely very important here for breaking actually the overwhelm. So that, just to emphasize that point, the beauty is that you don't have to think about finishing, because that really may feel overwhelming. You just have to keep on starting. And funny enough, if you keep starting long enough or often enough, well, you will finish. Finishing will take care of itself. So just think of starting. So that's one. And so, chunking, maybe breaking things down in smaller bits, like, hey, okay, what is just a 20-minute starting task that I can work on? Well, suddenly that becomes much easier to tackle. So, let's get practical and give more specific example. I've had this productive hero who was procrastinating for 25 years on writing his first book. He always knew he wanted to do that. That was very important for him. In 3 months, in 87 days, he was able to not only write it, but also publish and start selling it through with my coaching. And so how did we get to such a big result? Well, we started on the very first session by, hey, when can you actually block off, just 20 minutes for coming up and start actually, you said you had a draft somewhere. How could you just, when could you block 20 minutes to just review that draft and find this draft and then maybe review the first paragraph of it? So suddenly, that becomes way manageable than finishing my first book, writing and finishing my first book. And as we keep doing that, over and over, then we increase the intensity and the consistency. Well, hey, he actually finished it in 87 days. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it takes out one of the most difficult parts for these people, which is actually taking the first step.
Yes.
And that first step, it's so it's so profoundly rewarding to just go, I cracked the book open. I started the paper. I've got my first 5 slides done. And you just realize, well, that's a part of the beginning there. And if I just do this again tomorrow or again next week, and I keep doing this, it contributes to you just feeling better about yourself. It's a huge step to start something early.
You're so right. Because that's the hardest thing, is to start, to get started. So once you do get started, you start building this momentum. And this is something I often talk about. Momentum is really, really key when it comes to productivity. As Newton said, an object in motion stays in motion. And the opposite is also true. An object that is fixed will stay like not in motion. It will stay fixed. So here, overcoming this friction and actually building the momentum, starting, that is the key thing. And that's always the hardest part. So the key question is, how do we get started? So one of this is like this, is breaking the overwhelm, taking just baby steps, putting setting the bar lower so that it's less scary. You want to build a habit of working out consistently. That's a big one. A lot of people struggle with that. Don't keep telling yourself you need to go to the gym for 1.5 hours every single day. No, just go for a walk for 10 minutes. Or how about you just step into the gym and let's see if you work out or not. But it doesn't matter. What matters is you just step into the gym, and then you have the right to leave if you want. Well, once you're into the gym, usually you will still actually want to work out. So building that momentum, getting started, that's the key thing. So lowering the bar, that's also a big one that actually helps getting started. Another one I mentioned earlier definitely works very, very, very well with pretty much anyone, is creating accountability. Creating accountability is a game changer, because you know this as well. It's like we are social creatures. We care a lot about how people perceive us. We don't want to let other people down. So once we share about what we want to do and we give our word and our commitment, we want it to have value. So accountability is something very simple yet very powerful when it comes to getting started and actually overcoming procrastination. And so some of the best ways, you can use it for free, like maybe using focusmate.com, or you can ask your loved ones, your friends that want to support you, to also hold you accountable on specific things. Or, of course, one of the best ways and cheat code is hire a professional coach, someone like you or I, who is actually trained to get the best out of you in an objective way, without being your friend, without being your colleague, without being a family member, which adds another layer of like benefit to that, because you can really share whatever you have. You don't care what he's going to think, because you can really talk freely. And that's definitely a huge cheat code, as I like to say, when it comes to building momentum and overcoming procrastination.
These people, they really, really struggle. Life is really hard for them. And a lot of it has to do, in my experience, from many of the abusive ways that they talk to each other. Talk to themselves. And you had mentioned that negative self-talk and the things that they're talking to themselves about. Can you talk about the effect of that negative self-talk and how it perpetuates their sense that this is their lot in life? This is what they're just doomed to be.
So in my experience, I would just identify myself as a procrastinator. That was my identity. That was who I was. I am a procrastinator. Wow, that's difficult already to be able to change this identity. I am a procrastinator. That's talking about a limiting belief. Wow, that's a pretty big one already here. So this was my starting point. I'm just someone like that. And if this is how you start and you don't know that this can be changed and you're not meant to be a procrastinator for the rest of your life, then it's very difficult, because you'll think that, oh, that's just how I'm going to be all my life. And then it's super frustrating, very frustrating. And yes, the self-talk is absolutely terrible. Like the things that I would say to myself are things that I would never dare to say to anyone, because I'm actually, I don't like to bring people down. I don't like to be mean or whatever. But damn, if I was listening to what I was telling myself, it was bad. You're stupid. You're so stupid. Why you keep doing this? You never learn from your mistakes. You're not good enough. You're a quack. You're a charlatan. What would be something? Yeah, you'll never be able to achieve anything. This kind of really, 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 really hard thing. This is the kind of thing that
you're a fraud. Yeah.
A fraud. Yeah. This is really the kind of negative self-talk that you will tell yourself, and that definitely doesn't help at all. That's actually counterproductive.
And what strategies can parents use to help their children with healthy habits so that they don't come to start developing these really bad habits of leaving things to the end? Because children will do this sort of thing, and it becomes a habit that they carry with them into their adulthood. And so how would you have parents work with their kids on this?
I think in a similar way than with adults, something that comes into my mind is embracing failure and being okay with failure. And so, for example, teaching the kids that, you know what, the outcome here doesn't really matter. It's totally okay that you fail at this thing. What matters is you just keep on trying. You just experiment. See this as a game, and don't worry too much. Like one of my rule I set in my coaching sessions is I don't even allow the word failure. The word failure has to be replaced by learning experience. Learning experience, because that's what it is. Like there's no such thing as failure. Actually, it's such a harsh word. You just learn. It's just a learning experience. It's just feedback. It's like, okay, that thing didn't work. That's valuable data. That's good feedback. Now I have more feedback. I have more data. I can adapt and I can try something different until I succeed. Either you win or you learn, but you don't fail. And I think that would be a good approach for preventing this kind of behavior for kids, I think, because many times the opposite is also true. The parents will actually set a lot of pressure on the kids. I see this especially in Asia, where I'm currently living, where, like I think they call it like tiger mothers or helicopter mothers. It's like, they will say like, you gotta win that test, you gotta do this, or you will go to this brilliant school in America, etc. And that creates a ton of pressure on them. Then they develop this fear of failure, because failure is not an option. And so then guess what? They become massive procrastinators. Same thing, the cycle repeats. And then very likely they will pass this on to their own children as well, because that's often how the cycle works.
Gosh, I'm remembering back to my childhood, and in the United States, in the 5th grade, I think you do a state report on one of the states of the United States. Okay. And then in the 6th grade, you do a country report. And I did my state report on Hawaii, and I remember it very well because it was something that we had several months to complete, and you'd get a binder together and pictures and something about the economy and something. Just, it was about the practice of putting together a report, and it was way beyond me. I'd never done anything like that in the 4th, 3rd, 2nd grade, whatever. I just remember that for my parents, their thing was, we're going to do 1 page a day. It's going to be 27 pages, and it's 1 page a day. And it was every couple of days I would do a page, and oh God, I hated it. And my parents were stupid and everything like that. But a week ahead of time, I got to walk into my teacher's room and turn my state report in a week early. Amazing. And then all the other kids were just struggling through this thing and hadn't started and everything like that. And I thought, wow, this is so cool. Like, I'm done. Mine's up on the bookshelf up there. And that's something that my parents did that helped me be able to overcome so much of my own difficulties and distractions. And I read very slow and that sort of thing. And so just that kind of proactivity and demonstration of how you schedule something to get it done, and you just do it together. It was a really, really beneficial thing for me.
That's really clever, very brilliant, this approach. And the reason it works well is because this is actually something that I'm doing as well with my productive heroes. Is we want to optimize for consistency rather than intensity. That's the thing. There's the I'm not sure how you call it in English, but there's this fable called the fable of the rabbit and the turtle. The hare,
Tortoise and the hare. Yeah.
Tortoise and the hare. That's what it is about. That's exactly what it is about. You've got on one end the hare who is a bit cocky. He's super fast. He's very confident. He starts so super quickly the race. And then he's like, wow, I'm ahead. You know what? I'm going to take a break. I'm just going to go here and there. And then he just rests. And so intensity, and then nothing, and then intensity again. And eventually he ends up losing the race. Why? Because the tortoise is actually consistent. The tortoise, she knows that, actually, with a steady pace, if I keep going and doing a little bit, one step at a time, I can get through this. And eventually she's the winner. So there's wisdom, in this kind of old tales, because we want to optimize for consistency and not for intensity. That's actually very relevant here.
So what environmental factors like workstation organization, time management techniques, these sorts of things can make somebody feel less like procrastinating, less like putting something off? What makes an inviting environment for somebody where they want to get going and start something?
It can be a tricky question because for a perfectionist, we don't want to wait until having the perfect environment and then get started on your work, because then they will be in this mindset of, I gotta clean my whole house and I'm gonna do this and then I'll get started, and then it actually becomes a source of procrastination. So we don't really want to do that. I'll give like that. This is my personal opinion, but maybe two general guidelines would be, well, first of all, make sure that your workplace is without distraction. Like, that's the key thing. Like, don't have the TV right inside. Don't have, if you have the ability to maybe close the door of your office so that no one comes to talk to you, close the door, or even put a little sign, or let your spouse, if you work from home, to know that, hey, for the next 2 hours I'm actually focused. Do these kind of things to really prevent distractions. Leave your phone away. Use these kind of tools such as on the distraction shield to not actually check your emails every 5 minutes, to not go on YouTube and get swallowed in a rabbit hole. Like, those are good environmental hacks to actually minimize distraction. That would be really the number one. But the number two, this one is a bit unusual of a tip, would be get comfortable to work in imperfect environment. Be okay to just work basically from anywhere without waiting for it to be the perfect time or the perfect environment, because sometimes that doesn't work. So there's this concept of was a writer, British writer, who was saying, like, the reason why he's been able to write like his past 5 books despite being so busy is because he writes in parking lots. So whenever he comes to a meeting, he drives his car, he arrives a bit earlier, and then he just pulls over in the parking lot. He takes out his laptop, and then, oh, I've got 10 minutes. And you know what? He's going to just write 2 sentences for the next 10 minutes. And he's same thing. He's doing it consistently, and he keeps on starting. He keeps building that momentum so that there's no reason for him to procrastinate. So I think that's a brilliant advice from him of just and a strong reminder of not waiting neither for the perfect environment to get started. And for me, that's also one of my concepts, especially when dealing with perfectionists, is, be heroic. That's my whole theme. Be heroic means have the courage to get out of your comfort zone. And that's one example here, don't wait for the perfect time or the perfect circumstances to do perfect work. Get dirty, do something, make a first shitty draft of your book. And that's great. That's all that matters. Just get started. And sometimes I will challenge even perfectionists to consciously do imperfect work so that they can kind of train that imperfect muscle. That's a good tip as well.
Well, that's kind of an interesting thing because it's don't be intimidated of not doing it right, because at least you're doing it. And then you later you come back and you go, this isn't quite what I really meant, but it's a start. And then you can perfect it. It's just about get through the front door. Just start.
Absolutely. Start. Yeah. You can always improve later.
Yeah. Petrus, this has been the most in-depth discussion that I have ever had about procrastination. And I've learned a lot from this, and I appreciate everything that you have had to share. So how do people get in touch with you? How do people find you?
Thanks a lot for that. The best way would be to go to heroicproductivity.com/shield, where they'll be able to get this really awesome guide helping them minimize distraction and maximize focus. If they enjoy listening to podcasts as well, I can recommend them the Heroic Productivity Podcast, where basically I'm sharing all of these tips and pieces of wisdom about procrastination and productivity that works well for me and my productive heroes. And then I put in an interesting heroic fantasy twist. I put some epic background music because I'm having fun. This is something I really enjoy, Jeremy. And the thing is, life is not just about productivity. We want to work smart, play hard, and be heroic. It's important to also have these little periods of time where we just have fun and do non-productive stuff. So this is part of my journey as well, where I'm having fun. I'm definitely on this mission of helping people improve their productivity and minimize their stress. So yeah, that would be the best place to go. heroicproductivity.com/shield.
Petrus, this is why I appreciate what you're doing, because there are so many people out there that are struggling with procrastination, struggling with being able to effectively organize their lives, effectively organize their work. And it is something that has cost them so much in their lives, so much in their relationships, so much in their ability to reach and attain some high level of something and go, I belong here because I'm good enough for this. And what you have done is you have honed in on a specific need that there is with these people who are really struggling with something that they probably feel in a lot of ways kind of hopeless about. You provide the hope, you provide the tangible skills, you provide the productive coaching and the resources for people to be able to overcome something that has been so crippling in their lives. Not to mention you holding people accountable in your coaching. And so the work that you are doing is so tremendously important. I know that you're helping so many people. And so I just appreciate you bringing your expertise and your experience and your passion for something like this here so that people can live their lives in more effective ways. It's just an absolutely wonderful thing that you have put together.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Those are really kind words. And I've really enjoyed our time together. That was fantastic.
Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the Mindful Mutiny podcast. In a lifetime, there are more decisions than anybody can count. Living the highest form of yourself is the most rewarding thing that you can do. Make incredible, positive, risky, and bold decisions to be the highest version of you. Now go be something great.